thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. Download the app today.
This is Up for a Chat with your hosts, Cindy O'Meara and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Cindy O'Meara.
And I'm Kim Morrison. Boy, what a conversation we're up for this week. Beautiful Juliet Allen is joining us this week. Now, this successful entrepreneur is the one person who's going to help us up for it chatters open the conversation about how to have great sex every day. Are you ready for it? This woman draws on her background in psychology, sexology, yoga, and kundalini tantra. We are both very excited, no pun intended, to be on this call with you today. Beautiful Juliet, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited too to have this conversation and just to spend some time with you both amazing, beautiful women.
Well, let's go back. Let's go right back into the beginning. Who is Juliet Allen? Where did she come from? And what took her down the path of psychology and then into this whole realm of sexology, for want of a better word? Could you share your story with us?
Yeah, of course. Well, like you said, I studied psychology straight out of school. Well, actually, I had a gap year, and I traveled, and then I studied psychology. I was interested in learning more about humans and how they, the psychology behind them. And then I finished my degree and traveled some more, had my beautiful daughter, Millie, who's now 18. And then I became really interested in studying yoga. I became a doula and I supported women throughout their pregnancy and birth. And what I noticed in both working with women, teaching them yoga and being a doula was that a lot of their stuff, the challenges that they were facing in life was linked back to their sexuality, their sexual experiences, their desire for deeper connection and intimacy. And especially when it came to pregnancy and birth, I was noticing that was where women wanted to, what they wanted to speak about with me and kind of unpack prior to their birth. So that's where I became curious about how our sexuality ties in with those things. And then I love sex. I've always been very curious about sex and tantra. As a teenager, I was in secondhand bookstores, looking for books on sacred sexuality. I just wanted to learn and grow in that area of my life. And so I began exploring a lot in my 20s. And then I learnt that I could study sexology. And I just went for it. I did a master's in sexology. I loved it. I traveled the world learning about tantra. And here I am. I just dived straight into becoming a sexologist. I thanks to social media, could kind of just build a brand online. And when I started, which was about 12 years ago, there just weren't that many people doing it. So back in the day, it was quite a unique career choice.
Juliet, can you explain Tantra? I have heard it for many, many years. Can you just explain is it the Kundalini Tantra?
Yeah, so look, there are so many ways of describing what Tantra is, and everyone will tell you different things. But for me, the foundation of Tantra is choosing with awareness what brings joy to our life, essentially, which no one expects to hear. They think I'm going to say it's all about orgies and and 5-hour sex sessions. But really the foundation of it is choosing with awareness what brings joy into our life and connecting first deeply with ourselves and, building a beautiful, strong love for ourselves so that we can bring that into relating with others. And then, Tantra always, our sexual energy is a big part of the teachings in Tantra. So yes, it's about having more connected sex, more intimate sex, deeper sex, and bringing, but not just in the bedroom, but bringing that juice into our everyday life, into our career, into our mothering, into our, our greater purpose, like using that sexual energy to fuel our life. And that's what Tantra is for me. And Kundalini Tantra, you asked about that. So that's the specific area of Tantra, and that's about tapping into the energy that's in our body, the Kundalini energy, which lives at the base of our body. And it's about tapping into that and accessing that energy to release stored trauma and emotion in our body, and then get to a place where we've kind of unblocked all that, and we continue to use it as a tool to unblock stuff that we push down so that we can experience more pleasure in everyday life.
Absolutely love that. That is just the absolute best definition I've ever. I never really understood what Tantra was. I just assumed it was sex, but obviously it's not. And I just love that whole thing about the joy of life and bringing that into you. When you said the Kundalini is at the base of our body, is that one of the chakras?
Yeah. So I'm not big in. I'm not. I don't talk about chakras too often because I don't get too caught up in personally in like the different chakras. I just like to say that the base of our body, which is the lower two chakras, that's where our sexual energy, if you want to say, resides. That's where it's kind of sitting and stored. And oftentimes when we feel turned on or when we feel, sexually excited and aroused, we feel the energy in the base of our body, down in our sex center, in our womb, but even further down. And how do I say this? In general, we tap into that energy and then we release the pressure by allowing it, like by ejaculating as a man or having like a really short, sharp orgasm as a woman, often via our clitoris. And we actually aren't taught that we can move that energy up from the base of our body all the way up to our crown, out through our arms, into our heart, and we can move it up so that we experience deeper, more full body orgasms, but not just like physical orgasms, but just energetic kind of explosions. How do I say it? Expansions would be a good word. So when we can tap into our Kundalini energy, it's kind of like it unlocks something and the channels open and we experience more expansive orgasms.
Sorry, Kimmy. One of the things that I learned to do when I was doing Joe Dispenza's 7-day meditation retreat was to shift that base energy out like what you said and back into the heart. And it was a physical movement that we did. It was not just about us meditating. It was an absolute physical movement on the edge of our seat, like drawing in our muscles at the base and then almost using our hands and our whole body to ripple it through, out through the head chakra. It was incredible, Juliet. It was the most amazing feeling. And you could see some people just going into incredible raptures. It was 750 people in the room and you could hear it. And
wow.
All of a sudden you're just I guess, bringing all this together that I've been learning in meditation, but you're bringing it in on a different level. So thank you.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. It's my pleasure. And that sounds very similar. I mean, I'm not sure how they must have did they talk you through breath? Did you do breath work to get there? How did you get that? Because that sounds similar to activating, the kundalini energy.
Yeah, breath was all part of it. But it was that real tightness that he said to pull in at the base chakras. And then you could feel the energy move up. That's what blew my mind, is the way it moved up up through the center, not at the spine, but up through the center. And you could feel the explosion out. But it was all about, locking into the heart as well, doing that heart, what do you call it? Heart mapping, something like that. It was a couple of years ago that I did it. It was quite an experience to do that. So it's almost like this all is a part of it. It's not just the meditation and, moving through the chakras, but it's like, what you're saying, the kundalini is all part of that. So I've never wanted to go even read it, or it hasn't excited me in any way to do that. And whenever I hear someone talk about it, I just go, oh my gosh, I'd be asleep after 5 hours. I'm sorry. But now that you've explained it, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? You don't necessarily have to be. Do you mean you'd be asleep after 5 hours of sex? What are you referring to there?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, people assume that I'm just having these big, long sex sessions, and I'm not. But because I have explored and mastered how to move my sexual energy through my body, I could have a 10-minute sex session, but still experience, really deep pleasure and orgasmic energy in my body, because I've learned how to not just keep the energy stuck down in my lower chakras, but to build it up and pull it up into my heart center and expand in that way. So you don't need to be having 5-hour sex sessions to make the most of this at all.
I can hear massive relief from her already. I would love to ask you, beautiful Juliet, sex isn't a topic that's even one generation ago. It wasn't something that we talked openly about. In fact, a lot of people are still, inverted commas, prudish about the subject. What has been your experience of the awakening, of being okay? It's something that most people do in their life, and yet it seems to be one of those subjects that is taboo to talk about. What's the changes you've seen that's brought people to be more open about speaking about their sexual experiences positively, and also, of course, negatively, but also exploring it?
You're right. I think, a few years back, it still was very taboo, and it still is taboo. But I feel like there has been a shift, and I hate to say this, but I can attribute it to social media and people having access to platforms where they can talk about sex more openly and teach about, whatever they're teaching in the world, so that people have, access at their fingertips to learn, grow, and explore in this area of their life with more freedom from home. So 10 years ago, we may have been sitting at home wondering, is this normal? Does anyone else feel this way? Does anyone else have these challenges sexually? I don't know, and feel quite alone and not have anyone in our life who we can turn to and ask. But because now we have so much at our fingertips and so much access to so much information, I actually think that has impacted the topic of sex in a positive way, because more people are talking about it online, because people can access the information in the privacy of their own home. It's opening up conversations with their friends and family about it, and the taboo is slowly diminishing, very slowly, but it is.
I guess there's a real fine line when you say we can do this in the privacy of our own home. There is conversations. There's almost a little bit of a threshold or a cross between exploring this for health, well-being, sexuality, energy, as opposed to porn, which even a lot of men these days are saying it's not serving men or women, really, the whole topic of porn. How would you describe the difference of the two in a way that allows men, women, young, old, all understand the parts, or do you believe that they both play a part?
Both porn and like the whole.
The positivity around what you've just said is available to us with more freedom.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of wince a bit when I say like social media has helped us, because it's also hindering us in a lot of ways. And, having access to porn has not had a great impact at all on us. So, like you say, porn, it's just not reality. I'm not against porn, because there actually is there's a few women in the world who are creating porn that is more real. It's with real bodies, real people, and real experiences. And there's deep connection and intimacy, and that's people can learn from in that porn. But in general, porn is just like takeaway food. It's like having McDonald's. You're not ever going to feel like your cup is full after watching shitty mainstream porn. And what lacks in porn is the intimacy and connection that we can experience when we are making love or having sex with somebody. There's so much, the actors, they're having fake orgasms, all this. The bodies are often not real. There's makeup on their genitals, and yet our young people are being exposed to it so early, and it's impacting them because they think, oh, well, that's how you have sex, or that's how a vulva looks like. Why doesn't mine look like that? So what was your question? I feel like I've kind of just started ranting about porn. And
No, it was good. There is positive. I think what I was looking for, and you answered it beautifully, is that there is healthy porn as opposed to fast food takeaway porn, which is probably where a lot of, I guess, my concern around it is that young men, teenagers will be watching this, then they get their first experiences, or perhaps they start out in relationships with young women, and women, generally speaking, young, have this expectation they've got to have the big fake boobs, the lips, the eyebrows, the eyelashes, and look like, for want of a better word, a porn star. But underneath all of that, there's actually two beautiful souls wanting to connect at an intimate level. But I'm not sure that takeaway porn is really giving young men and young women a really fair start on this journey if they haven't got a wholesome conversation around it in the home. Is that a fair comment?
Absolutely. You're spot on. It's not just for young women, it's not just them having an expectation of how they should look, but it's also how they should sound. In porn, women are having fake orgasms. They're being, really loud. It's all curated. It's all focuses on the man's pleasure in general, and it's from the male gaze. And so, yeah, there's a lot of shitty expectations that our young people have around sex and how it should be. And I think it all starts in the home, and we can't expect our schools, like our sex education is just not ideal in schools at all. We can't expect our schools to do it. It's our responsibility as parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles and caregivers to firstly, how do I say it? To firstly deal with our own stuff that gets in the way of us experiencing, true deep intimacy, connection, great sex in our life, so that we can bring that to our young people, even just bring a transmission of that, of a deeply embodied woman who values intimacy. This is my goal as a mother, is that my children don't only get the conversations in the home, but that they are just around parents who model intimacy and prioritize that. The 6-second kiss that we were talking about before we started recording. It's like, how beautiful would it be to grow up in a household where your parents do kiss, and where your mother does feel comfortable in her own body, it all starts in the home.
And I think that the fact that I have so many questions after your just last statement. First of all, there was the stuff. What is the stuff that stops us? That was number one. And number two, I don't remember, like I'm a 1960s child, so I'm in my 60s. I don't remember I don't remember my mother having a thing about her body. She was very confident in who she was and what she looked like. And so I guess emulated that. I didn't have many hang-ups about my body. But I just see even a beautiful, voluptuous women hating on their body and hating on who they are as humans. Like I look at them and I go, oh, you've got curves in the best places. You are beautiful. Yet they've got this hang up. And I don't know if it's this era and why. And is it because we're getting fatter? And is that part of the stuff that stops us being the best that we can possibly be on the planet? I guess that's a lot of questions, Juliet, but you just brought up so much in that last sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that sounds like you had a great experience growing up with a mother who was confident in her body. And I honestly think that's quite rare from my experience and from working with so many women over the years. So that's wonderful that you experienced that and had that with your mother. The stuff that I'm referring to is, unaddressed trauma from childhood. It doesn't need to be, the typical like really heavy trauma that we're talking about. It could just be, that we're a little boy or girl and we're touching our genitals because it feels good. And then our mum comes along and slaps our hand away and says, you don't do that. That's not what we do. Put it away. Yucky. It could just be a moment like that we're not conscious of, but that has, as an adult, when we kind of go back in time, has impacted us and impacted how we feel. Or it could be, a traumatic first sexual experience, or the divorce of our parents, or, all the stuff that we face and humans face that then impacts us, or being brought up in a religious household. That's a very common one, or going to a Catholic school, even though our parents aren't really Catholic, and then being taught that all the stuff that is preached in those spaces. And then that impacts us as adults. So we get to adulthood, we're in a relationship, and we wonder why we're not comfortable being naked, we're not comfortable pleasuring ourselves, we're not comfortable being intimate with our partner, all the things. And in my opinion, it's so important that we get the support via therapy or whoever we see, whatever practitioner resonates with us, to go there and heal from those past experiences and move forward so that we can just fully experience our pleasure potential and experience the deep intimacy that we yearn for with others.
You touched on something in there about trauma. We didn't mention things like sexual trauma, like people that have been abused, or people that have sadly experienced perhaps rape or violence or anything at all along there, men and women. And a lot of that can be swept under the carpet, as we know. But when you say deal with that trauma, do you truly believe it is possible for people who have experienced such, harsh traumatic events to be fully healed and then integrate a very healthy, beautiful sexual relationship with someone they truly adore?
Yeah, absolutely. Do believe that they can. And I've seen it. It's not my area of expertise, trauma. I'm not trained in that area. And I personally, when I was younger, didn't experience that kind of trauma. So for me to feel in full integrity with my work, I don't deal. If someone comes to me and says, I've got major sexual trauma from my childhood, I'll refer them on to someone who I know is really well equipped to deal with that, right? So that's just me kind of saying it's not my area of expertise and being honest about that. But I have so many women in my life who are mentors of mine and elders in my life who experienced really horrid experiences as children, and who are now, and have been for years, just in beautiful, deeply connected, intimate relationships, experiencing more sex than I ever have, greater sex, like really, great role models in my life who have moved through traumatic experiences. So I do believe it's possible. And yeah, that's my answer.
I think that it's interesting that the same thing can happen to different people and they perceive it differently. And some move through it, some don't, some it becomes a positive in their life. I often wonder, what is it that gives that perception? And I'm going to give you an example of a trauma and a childhood. So, and this is in the same household, and I've said this before on Up for a Chat. So I have two siblings, an older sister and a younger brother. And my younger brother and I saw our childhood as a fairy tale. My sister saw it as a nightmare. And yet we were brought up in the same household. We had the same parents. She was only born 16 months before me. And her whole life was a lot of turmoil. She passed early. She was always sick. There was always something happening in her life that was turmoil. And I find that fascinating. And I know that this isn't probably where we're meant to be going with you, but we've started talking about trauma and how some people, I think Kim's had some trauma and she's taken it and done it and made it positive and really moved past it. And yeah, I find it fascinating. And do you ever find that in your work where people have said, yep, this has happened, but this is what it's made me and this is how I am today?
Absolutely. It's just it's a mindset. It's the approach to it, right? I've had a couple of traumatic events, not sexually, but I once had an ectopic pregnancy where, I got pregnant and then I had to get be rushed to emergency, have my fallopian tube removed. And that was so traumatic. Like, that was just so traumatic for me. But I actively sought out people to help me move forward from it and weirdly see the gold in the experience. Like, what did I learn about myself? And another traumatic event actually was last year when my daughter Magnolia, I was 30 weeks pregnant. I've got 3 children. So my son was born at home in front of the fireplace, super cruisy home birth. So Magnolia, I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to do the same thing again, birth at home. And at 30 weeks, my waters broke. And so I then gave birth to her in hospital and was in hospital with her in NICU while she was pretty healthy, but she still needed lung support and stuff. Anyway, it was quite traumatic, the whole thing. But my approach to it was like, this can either really fuck me over, this whole situation, or I can just seek out the gold in it. Like, what am I learning about myself? What are the gifts that she has brought to me from choosing to, and then I believe that she was like so just keen to join the party that she was like, okay, we're doing this, Mum. I'm coming out early. And what can I learn about myself and her in this? And so, there's always a choice there, right? Like, in the moment it can be traumatic, but we can choose to move forward and see the gold. And I think that's like with anything.
And sometimes we just need that little bit of training or help in order to see that. And
absolutely. And I just want to add, you can't do it alone. I just don't believe we can do it alone. We need to seek out people who can support us to move through whatever we need to move through to get to a place where we don't feel traumatized by something that doesn't impact every other area of our life.
So true.
I think that also too, what we're talking about here is there's so many different experiences and different perceptions, different personas, personalities, judgments, opinions, desires, all of these things. Ultimately, sex is a very intimate act, generally speaking. It is either between yourself and usually one other. And it can be an incredible, incredible time where people get taken to places where they feel in that moment, at that time of their life, it's potentially one of the best things that they could share with another human. Is it your understanding then, all the work that you've done, that we can really, really engage people to have these incredibly healthy connections and relationships? Because one thing you mentioned at the beginning was you can have sex at a deeper level, or you can make love at a deeper level. I got from that it's okay to have a one night stand, or that if it's two mutual agreeing partners, let's have some fun. What would you call the difference between sex and making love?
Good question. I say like there's three different types of sex. There's takeaway sex. So the kind of sex that you do it, it's between two or more people. There's a really strong pull at your sex center. So there's a lot of turn on by, oh, they're hot, they're sexy, I just want to fuck them kind of energy, that kind of sex. You do it, and then afterwards, in general, after takeaway sex, it's similar to eating a gross burger or something disgusting like McDonald's, where you feel a bit empty and like, oh, I don't feel energized after that. Why did I do that? That just doesn't sit right. So that's takeaway sex. Then there's good sex, which is like, we have sex, it's fun. Like someone asks you, how was it? And you're like, yeah, it was good. That was good, And then there's like ecstatic sex, which is more so, and lovemaking can be good and it can be ecstatic, where we just feel so deeply connected, first to ourselves and then to the person that we're making love to. And it energizes us. It energizes us for hours or days afterwards. It's not energy depleting, it's energizing. We feel expanded after the experience. And that's where that type of sex, ecstatic sex, is often when we feel not just connected at our sex center, but also at our intuition, our how do I say it? Our womb as a woman, like that area of our body, we feel like deeply like pulled toward that person, and intuitively we're like, I know this is the right person for me to make love to. And then our heart center, we just feel deeply connected at our heart, and then our head says yes too. So like there's 4 centers that I teach in the body, and this is kind of going down the path of tantra, but when we have those 4 centers connected, it leads to really deeply ecstatic sex. But if only 1 or 2 centers is activated, then it can be kind of shitty takeaway or just good sex. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's actually really powerful. While we were talking here, I'm sitting here listening, thinking, oh my gosh, it's you, Juliet, that my daughter told me that she listened to you as she was a young woman, teenager, going into her early 20s. It was her podcast, and I just literally texted and said, was it Juliet Allen? And she goes, oh my God, I love that woman. She taught me how to have an orgasm by myself and with someone else. Tell her I love her.
Goosebumps. I just got goosebumps. That's so special.
And then I said, can I share that? And she goes, absolutely. Everyone needs a Juliet in their corner. It's so beautiful, because you can't always ask your mum or your auntie.
No.
And your best friends may not necessarily have the best answers either. And so could you tell us a little bit about what you offer and how you teach people this through your podcast, through your programs, through your products? How would people listening to this that may find it a little bit uncomfortable to talk to their loved ones about, but want to learn more for themselves?
Yeah, well, I have a podcast. It's called Authentic Sex, and I've been running it for years. There's about 160 plus episodes on there on all sorts of topics. I approach the topic of sex really holistically. So I relationship stuff. There's interviews with health practitioners. There's lots of stuff around tantra, but there's BDSM stuff. There's everything on there. So that's the first place that people can go. Just search Authentic Sex with Juliet Allen, and you'll find the podcast on, your podcast channels wherever you listen to podcasts. And then I have different programs that I run. I have one called Pleasure School, which is it's about 40 something plus lessons that I filmed with different practitioners. A lot of them are with me, and then some of them are with different practitioners who I've worked with, all about all differing aspects of sex and relationships. So that's another program that I run. I just ran a 21-day, there's so many things, like a reset that I did. Last night was the final evening of that. And what I love to teach people is that vitality and radiance and pleasure equals sexual magnetism, basically, is the formula that I like to speak about. So that reset was about reminding people that if they want to experience great sex and they want to be deeply connected to their sexual energy and they want it to be a lifelong thing, not just a temporary thing, then they really need to work on their vitality, their radiance, and everyday pleasure, not just sexual pleasure. So that was about that. And then the other program that my partner and I we created together is called the Intimacy Blueprint. And I really love this one. It's for people who want to one day have a great relationship, or for couples. And it's all around creating your own blueprint for your relationship so that you can prioritize intimacy and get really clear on your values as a couple and where you're headed, what's your bigger dream, also how do you deal with conflict. There's so much in it that I love. So yeah, there's just a few things that I offer.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And I think it's such an incredible, amazing gift that you do bestow on this world. And on behalf of Taylor and all of us women and men out there that really do believe in the power of positive, beautiful, authentic sex, then we just want to say thank you. You're incredible. I one thing that I've been dying to ask, and we went down a number of years ago, went to Mona, the Museum of New and Old Art, and in there was the Wall of Vaginas. And I stood there probably with my mouth gaping wide open, looking at about, 50, 100 vaginas. I don't know, it was heaps, all those.
I guess 300.
Was it 300, was it?
Yeah, there's a fair few up there.
And I looked at them all and I went, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how different they are. We're not even really taught in my generation to even look at your own one, let alone see how many different. I thought it was the best thing I'd ever seen. What do you say to women? Because this has concerned me as well. When I looked at that, there was women that had very exposed lips. There were women that were very neat, tidy. And I've heard of young women having operations to actually tidy, if that's the right word. What's your thoughts around that kind of thing when they are all designed to be so different?
Well, this is what porn has to answer for, right? Because in porn, the women who are cast to be porn stars there's a certain type of porn pussy, they call it, which is, very, as you quote unquote, tidy, not many, there's not much going on there. It's just the clitoris and the lips, and it's not out there. It's very little and cute. I don't know whether that's a word to describe, but you know what I mean? These very tidy vulvas. And so women grow up to think that that's what they're supposed to look like, especially our young women who now, children are getting younger and younger and being exposed to porn. So I think it used to be like 12 years was the average, and now it's going down, which is just terrifying, absolutely terrifying that porn is their first sexual experience, basically. But so we don't, it's not like we get together with our friends and go, oh, what does yours look like? What does mine look like? Wow, we're all so different. How wonderful. We're kind of just born with what we look like, and then we grow up, and not many of us have women in our life who tell us that we all look different, right? But reality is we do. And we're all beautiful and unique in our own way, and we're all created differently. And I love that piece of art that you're referring to, and I've been there and seen it. And I've actually had my vulva cast like that a couple of different times. And I've got one, I actually accidentally dropped it the other day. It was in the cupboard in my office, and it kind of dropped on the floor, and my son was like, what's that? But yeah, it's just so valuable that we are reminded as women that we're all so different and beautiful, and there's no perfect vagina, we're all perfect.
So, Juliet, I love hiking. And
where are you going with this?
You wait. And
I thought the same thing.
One of my favorite hikes is Carnarvon Gorge. And there's a thing called an art gallery there. And in the art gallery are hundreds. It's called the Wall of Vulvas.
Oh.
Yep, done by the Australian Aboriginal people, thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And they talk about it being a fertility spot, that if you got pregnant there, then you carved your vulva, the look of your vulva. So
wow.
They've been doing it a long time, and it's worth going for a hike to have a look at it, because it's quite incredible. So I don't know if the Wall of Vaginas comes from the Wall of Vulvas, I'm not sure, but every single one of them is carved into the rock, and it's a sandstone rock at Carnarvon Gorge. So if anybody wants to go see the art gallery, that's what they'll see. They'll see more, but that is a big part of it. Yeah. So
I
that's
didn't know that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you'll have to go for a walk there, because and it's all different. Like you were saying, they're all different. They were different back then. They're different now. Nothing's changed. We're obsessed. Maybe there's an obsession with what it did look like, and then we became prudish, and nobody looked at it anymore. And now there's more of a thing to say, yeah. And that's the scary part is when I hear of people having, I don't know the technique.
Labiaplasty.
Labia, yeah. I find that unbelievable that they think that's what they have to do.
Yeah, I agree. And we also need to be mindful and aware that our vulva changes in appearance over a lifetime. Like, you are both mothers, and you know what it's like to be pregnant, and how our vulva changes during pregnancy and fills with blood, and there's so much, like, just the appearance of it changes a lot. And then we give birth and it changes again, and then through each pregnancy it changes. And gosh, mine's gone from like looking one way to completely different and now. And so that's a journey in itself as a woman, I think.
And a man. I mean, when they watch the birth of their child, I've heard so many funny comments of people saying, for men, it's like watching their favourite pub burn down. I've heard so many things, because the whole part of that was completely different.
My life has flashed before me. My life just flashed before me. I had a friend who split up, not down, and he said, I just saw everything flash before me. I was finished.
Well, also because when we're pushing a baby out of our vagina, our anus completely opens, and like, just there's so much pressure down there. It just looks just so different to what it normally looks like if you're looking at an anus.
Juliet. Different's a really good word.
Different.
No, I want to move a little bit to the difference between sex for a male and sex for a female, or making love for a male versus a female. For a woman, for me, I guess I'm going to say me, it all starts long before the bedroom. the graciousness of the man, in the help the man, in the protection of the man. I don't know. Why is that? Why can't it just be something where you go, oh, I'm pissed off with him. If we have some good sex, things will be fine.
I have the answer.
Oh, good.
Well, because as women, this is also tantric teachings, the positive pole in our body is our heart. For men, the positive pole in their body is their penis. And so as women, for us to open sexually and really experience that deep intimacy, connection, orgasm, all the things that we desire, we need to feel like our heart is open and is tended to and is adored, and we need to feel heard, we need to feel safe, we need to feel like we can fully open at that center in our body, at our heart center, at the heart chakra. And when we do, we're more likely to want to have sex with a man, or if you're in a same-sex relationship, with our partner in general.
Yeah.
For men, they find it, in general, this is very general, they find it easier to just jump into bed and have sex because they don't need that, their heart to be open as much, because their cock is what actually needs to be activated for them to want to have sex. So for women, for a man, I don't know whether you said, you need that lead up. You just need to feel safe and open and loved to want to make love, and I'm the same. But for a man, often they actually just need, like, they need to feel grounded in their cock. So like a hand actually on their cock to kind of ground them and activate them to want to have sex. We're so different, but that's where the polarity comes in. That's where why there's so much magnetism between men and women in general, because we're so different in that way. It creates polarity, which then creates fireworks. There's like two poles to the magnet that goes dunk, and then, yeah. Does that help you understand
fireworks? Well, it creates fireworks in two ways, doesn't it? You can create fireworks that are great, and it create fireworks that are not great.
Absolutely.
There's your polarity.
Either way, he'll think it's great. I love this so much, and it's so true. Danny's mum, my husband's mum, has always said, I'm sure she won't mind me sharing this, but the sooner women realize vaginas rule, the better off women are going to step into their incredible grace and their amazing power. Now, she says it tongue in cheek, but she talks a lot, and she talked to my beautiful daughter and son about, I love the fact that we have this open conversation, but she talked a lot about the fact that it is a privilege for a man to actually enter a woman, but it's the woman who actually invites or allows that entering, and the power of that is something that women shouldn't forget. And I say that with grace for both sides, not one or the other. Is that something that you really talk a lot about the intimacy of the entering and being entered into?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's why I think it's actually so valuable for men to have the experience of being entered anally. And this could be in ritual, like in a beautiful honoring of them, and like a ceremony where their cock is honored and worshipped, but then that they're actually penetrated anally with a finger, but so that they can feel what it's like to build up to being ready to be opened in that center of their body. Because when they get that, then they actually understand what it's like for us as women to have to be ready to invite penetration in. It's not just, let's fuck and suddenly our vagina opens, and we need that lead up. We need to feel ready. There needs to be either a verbal or non-verbal cue that our lover feels that we're ready to be entered. So it can be really cool for men to experience that anally so that they understand what it's like for us women. And I know I just took that to a place you didn't think I was going to take it.
So good.
Oh, I thought a proctologist, actually, as you said.
What did you say?
I thought of a proctologist. I don't know what they're called in Australia, but in America they're called proctologists, and they check for they check the male, but they
Prostate.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the prostate. Yeah, they check. What are they called in Australia? I can't remember. But anyway, in America, they're called proctologists. And I know my husband's got these great jokes about a psychologist and a proctologist. But do you think that I can remember? I think it was bits. And anyway, I can't remember the joke. We won't go there. That is a question now that you've headed towards that way and I've taken you another way. I am hearing more and more young men with prostate cancer and having their prostates taken out, which creates real issues for not only relationships but for them as men. Do you have any protocols, help for relationships that have this problem happening?
I don't. I haven't directly worked with young men who have had their prostate removed. And I actually haven't worked with any women who are in relationship with a man who's had their prostate removed. So it's not an area that I have learnt much about or studied. But I am hearing, like you say, that it is more common. And in fact, recently my dad had his prostate removed. He had cancer there and he had it removed. And I have been wanting to explore and look into like the emotional aspect of that. And obviously there's so many different factors to why we manifest something like that in our body. And I can't speak to it personally, like from a practitioner.
Maybe we'll ask you in 20 years when you're at a different age, because it's my age now that I'm hearing it of friends, partners that they're in their 50s and they've had their prostates removed. And I just think, oh, wow, and I know what that means. That means, sometimes you have no control of urination and there's no erections happening. Not always, but this can happen because prostate is so important.
Yeah.
So I just, we might need to be in another 20 years. How's that go, John?
That sounds great. I'm all for that.
Can I ask a question? There was many years ago after we had our first child. I remember we had the book Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars, and then he also wrote the book Mars and Venus in the Bedroom. And one of the things that would come up in our relationship in particular was the good old quickie, like, is it good, is it not good? And I think for a while there, my husband felt he had to always please. And then there was times where I was like, oh, for God's sake, just be done. I'm done. I'm so tired, whatever. Anyway, in that book, Mars and Venus in the Bedroom, it was so cute because he actually, and I'd read a chapter every night. That was the way I could get Danny to read. But I'd read it aloud. And then he said at one point, it's actually a quickie is also a good thing. It's a release for the man. He doesn't have to worry. She's okay about it. And so our little line became, yeah, climb aboard. And it was so funny. And even now sharing this, I'm so cracking up because actually what it did is it made it even more wholesome. And then often the quickie actually became something because we did allow that to be. It wasn't a drag for either side. What's your thoughts around the quickie? And is it something that is just as powerful? I think you have answered this really at the beginning, but I was just curious, is there anything more we needed to know about the quickie and that it's okay for both sides?
No, I'm all for the quickie. I agree with you. It's can be really healthy, still really deeply connective and powerful to connect in that way. And I think I don't like it when people shame quickies, because if it's between two consenting adults or three, whatever, who are up for it, then why not enjoy pleasure in that way? There's no right and wrong way to experience pleasure and connection, both in and out of relationship. I'm also all for one night stands, as long as people are going into it, consciously, and have had conversations around the expectations around it, and they're with someone who they feel respected by, and somebody who's, a beautiful person one night stands can be just so amazing. Like some of my best sex has been just one night. That's it. Never see them again. Done. But the connection and like experience has been ecstatic. So I'm all for it all.
I think there's something too to be said that if we can actually really own who we are, be responsible, and also be aware that that's what we just want, for want of a better word, a release or a connection or whatever. What's your thoughts then around the swiping left, right, Tinder, Grinder, I've forgotten something, Bumble, all of these, because
Bumble.
I'm now meeting a lot of people. This is, for Cindy and I, we haven't had to do this, so excuse our ignorance to the listener and you. But I guess I'm asking you, is it right or wrong? I know it's even a stupid question in itself, but I guess there's positives and negatives to it, because we're now meeting a lot of people, Cindy and I, who have actually met, and I'm a marriage celebrant, so I love. And when I ask how they met, a lot of them it has been through the swipe or through Bumble. So is it a new way that we're now connecting? Is it a good way? Is it the only way? Like, what are your thoughts around how we now get that connection?
Oh, I'm all for it. I think I don't see any issue with dating, online dating, and all the different apps. I think as long as we're going into it, being very open and honest about what we want, what we desire, what our intention is, what we are seeking, then that gives us the better possibility of meeting someone who also wants the same things and who is aligned with what we're looking for and with our values potentially. So if I was getting on Tinder again, which I haven't been for years, but I would be very upfront about what I'm looking for so that I can attract in the same, someone who's also seeking the same thing. I think where it's problematic is people find, say, someone on Tinder and they're not taking it into real life. Like there's just a lot of chatting on an app and then nothing really happens and there's all these games being played. Whereas when I was on Tinder, my rule would be like, if I meet first, don't swipe don't swipe right unless I'm like 100% feeling good about like, yes, this person sounds awesome, looks awesome, I'll give it a swipe right. But then also very quickly, I'd say, let's chat on the phone so that I could really get to know them in that way before I met up with them. But what a lot of people do is they just keep it within the app, and it's just like no one's really upfront about what they want, or it just gets a bit messy. But gosh,
or they put a fake photo up, or they put the wrong age, or they say the wrong BS, or
they leave out that that they've got 3 children, but they just leave that factor out, and it's like, But my partner and I, we've been together 7 years, and we met on Instagram. He DM'd me on Instagram, replied to a story, DM'd me, and I thought, who is this guy? And then I kind of sussed him out a bit, and he said, you know what? When we met up, he said, I wanted to come to one of your workshops so that I could meet you. And I thought, fuck it, I'm not going to a workshop. I'm just going direct to an inbox and I'll see what happens. And here we are. As soon as we met, we were just deeply in love, and, we have 3 kids, and
it's adorable.
Yeah. So you can meet online.
Oh, I've just married so many couples nowadays. It's so huge. And I just think, in my grandparents' day, it was going to the local dance. That's how you met someone. In my mum's day, it was almost, for her, well, for my mum, she was 16 when she fell pregnant with me to my dad. And that kind of pushed them into a marriage, which, it did not last. 9 years, 3 kids later, it was over. And then my daughter, who, by the way, has been texting me nonstop since I've been telling her I've been on the phone to you, on this call with you. She's going, tell her she's my queen. Tell her, she goes, she's literally my hero. I love her. I've been listening to her for years. It's so crazy. I said, how lucky are we that we have these conversations? But why I'm bringing this up is circumstance, you can't, serendipity, whatever we want to call it. Beautiful Dr. Brian Weiss talks about the fact that you don't need to go I don't know how he worded it, but it's not about actively looking for your partner. The right one will occur when you remain open, when you be your authentic self, and trust that he calls it a soul mate or a soul connection. But he talks in there a lot about the fact that one of the stories he shares in his book was how he tried, when he realized doing these past life regressions with these clients, that two of them who were really struggling to find love, a man and a woman, he then realized with the stories that they shared, and whatever people think about past life regressions, that's not the point of this, but he realized that their stories were very similar. Do you remember this, Cindy?
Only Love is Real is the book.
Yeah, and he talks about how he then tried to force them, so made sure that their appointments were one after the other because he knew that they were, inverted commas, soulmates. And then they saw each other in reception and just acknowledged but nothing. Tried it 3 times till he realized he was trying to play God. And then I can't remember the exact details of the story, but I think his mother was ill. He had to fly to New York. She was going to New York on a flight. And they happened to have been sat down next to each other. There was a recognition. And then all the way from LA to New York, they didn't stop. They're now fully head over heels in love and they've married and all of that. But it was such a reminder of trusting that the universe really has got your back. That if you actually really remain open, that serendipity, if that's what we want to call it, will play a part if we don't maybe force it or allow it. Is that your understanding as well? Like you just said, you met your partner and it was instant love. For some people, a woman I married last year, it took her 3 years before she was trying to set her husband up on dates with all sorts of people till she realized he was the one. What's your thoughts around that? I guess, again, there's no right or wrong.
Oh, look, everybody's experience of love is so unique, isn't it? I think we're more likely to meet somebody who we are compatible with when we are just so devoted to cultivating like a beautiful relationship with ourselves first, and we aren't in that kind of needy, desperate energy of like, I need to meet someone and I need to have kids and everyone else is married, I need that, or whatever it is, or, I haven't had a relationship for years, I need that. I just think the most magnetic energy is when somebody is just so deeply happy in their own company, in solitude, in their what brings joy to their life, that's when we're more likely to meet that special someone, because that energy is magnetic. And we're also more likely when we're in that state to meet someone who can meet us with that energy, that similar vibration. So yeah, that's my short answer to what we could probably have a whole other podcast episode about that one, right?
Most definitely. And I think we could have a whole podcast on relationships and it goes so deep. When I said to Kim, all right, you've got to be on this podcast call with Juliet Allen. She's a sexologist. I won't know what to ask her. But in actual fact, I found this incredible because Kim's the open one. I'm the prude. Isn't that right, Kimmy?
Oh, no, I don't think you're prudish at all. I just think it's what we've been trained and how we've been brought up. And because when you and I are together, we're very open. I guess it's, I've just learned through what I do in recognition and honor of that is I am probably a very open book about my stories, my life, my children, my relationship, my experiences, and try to give. But I think the thing where Cindy and I share our experiences, and I think you're the same, Juliet, is it's not a sharing to get it off our chest. It's a sharing to perhaps open up a pathway or a channel where someone sees themselves in that story, where maybe they may not have seen it before. And I think that's what your podcast, your programs, your teachings, you are making sex not a dirty word. And in fact, you're inviting us to realize it's one of the most prolific acts on the planet. That is one of the most special and beautiful acts we could ever participate in. And I think what I've really learned from today, and where Cindy was saying she didn't know what to ask, is that it's actually not about the sex, the act. It's about the intimate connection to self and the other or others. That really is what matters. And Cindy, I just think you're incredible with how you share your life and love so passionately around, and it could be around food. But I'm going to invite you now, Cindy, perhaps to do a nutritional food sex challenge. Maybe there's something we could do there.
Oh my gosh, it's so needed. We need to do this because, yeah, it's the missing piece. It really is the missing piece. You could listen to me speak all day, but I'm not trained in nutrition and all that. So, speaking about, I mean, and we did briefly touch on this when you were on my podcast, Cindy, about how nutrition impacts our sexual energy and our vitality and all that. It's so important that people learn about that.
Julia, you talked about when I was on the podcast with you, we talked about the importance of, health. But, one of the things that you talked about with Tantra, and that was the foundation of Tantra, what brings joy into our lives. When you have health mentally and physically, which is obtainable, we just have to find the right ingredients and the lifestyle to do it, you have joy. And so to me, it just works absolutely beautiful with what you've been talking about, and nutrition. And I even think about Kim and her smells and her senses that she brings to the table. And last week we interviewed a dating expert. He has a protocol on dating. And I just think all four just work so well with regards to relationship. All we need is Gottman now. Kimmy, that's Nate Gottman.
I agree. But I think this is so powerful. Every time I think of you now, Cindy, and now Juliet, all I'm seeing is Sex in the City with Kim Cattrall with sushi all over her belly and waiting for him to come home. I just, chocolate body paint, all of these things. There are so many amazing, beautiful foods and things that we can relate to. Food is very sexual. Music can be sexual. You just mentioned smells. And I have a real strong belief that all the synthetic chemicals and all these lubricants and deodorants and perfumes and aftershaves are actually hiding our beautiful sexual pheromones and hormones that then may allow us to make even better decisions about who we choose to be intimate with. I don't know if you've done I've got no science to prove that on my part with smell, but I do feel like the amount of divorce and separations and challenges, I'm curious to think whether or not smell is one of those underrated senses that we do not talk enough about. Do you know much about the pheromones and what we do? Is that something that is part of the attraction in your humble opinion?
In my humble opinion, it is. And I'm so with you on that. There's, when occasionally Nick and I will go for like a walk or a hike or whatever, and we always just look at each other and just wince when, when say a woman walks past and she's got so much perfume on that it kind of just stings your nose and it's just so full on. We chat about that lots, how so many people now are just covering themselves in chemicals. That's what it is, as you know, that we're not able to like connect into people's pheromones and their like unique scent, I guess. And I think it does have a big part. It has a lot to do with connection and like that chemistry that we can have with people. It's kind of like we're cock blocking in a way, cock-blocking ourselves with chemicals.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's the men as well, Juliet. Like, yes. I walk past men who have got so much aftershave. I can't stand it. And I have to move away from them. And I just think, like, like even essential oils are more natural than those, I don't know, those are filled with phthalates and all sorts of hormone disrupting things. So we could actually go on and on and on about how many things affect our attraction to men. There's probably 100 things that we could do, or women, and our health and so much. And we try and do that on Up for a Chat as much as we can. Kim does it with her work. Juliet, you do it beautifully with your work, and I do it with nutrition as well. And on behalf of Kim and I want to thank you so much for being extraordinary. And I know I've heard Taylor talk about these things before. I had no idea it was you, Juliet, and it's just so nice. The synchronicity of life has brought us together to help other people.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your gifts with the world, both of you, and thanks for having me on today. It's such a great conversation, and I look forward.
But you never tire of it either. It's incredible.
No, I don't.
One thing just before, if you both don't mind, to finish up, we did say off air before we started recording, we just talked a little bit about the 6-second kiss and the 20-second hug. Could you tell us what that means to you, and then perhaps finish also up with your final words, and then, of course, how we can follow you?
Sure. Yeah, we were speaking about the 6-second kiss, which is John Gottman. It is, his name is John, isn't it?
John and Julie, yeah.
Yeah. He speaks about that, how important it is that we spend time, kissing our beloved hello and goodbye, and that it's not just a peck, but that we linger there for longer than a second. So that's something that in our relationship we really strive to do, and we don't always do it. Sometimes when you've got 3 kids and you're racing out the door, I get in the car and I drive away and think, oh my God, I didn't even kiss him goodbye. But it's something that I always keep at the forefront, because just those little moments, all the little moments build up to the bigger moments, as you guys know, and it's so important that we prioritize that in relationship to keep that intimacy alive and that connection there. Yeah. What else did you ask? Your final thoughts? I'm just so grateful that you're opening up this conversation for others to listen to, and perhaps inspire others to other people to learn more and grow and explore. And it's a never-ending journey. It's not like do a course and suddenly you're going to have great sex. For me, my commitment to myself and to others is to continue this work within and out for, my entire life, because there's just so much to learn through the different seasons of life. Yeah.
And to follow you, sweetheart, your website and socials.
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm at Juliet, JULIET _ Allen, ALLEN. And that's where I share a lot of my work. I have had to curb, whatever you say, my... I guess make it more G-rated, because Instagram is just so on to anyone in my industry now and keeps threatening to just take me down because I'm just far too risque. I am not at all. But anyway, that's that. That's where you can find a lot. I have my podcast, as we mentioned, and my website is juliet-allen.com. And that's where you can find out more about my offerings and different courses that I bring to the world and create.
We'll make sure everybody gets that, Juliet.
Thank you.
You're beautiful. We love you. And I'm so excited to have made the connection via Taylor. She's still telling me, tell her again, she's a queen. You are. Love you.
Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.